puts us closer to the food.
Okay, this morning instead of the normal C.S. Lewis, we're going to have a presentation about where things stand with the expansion. You can look out the window and see a blue fence and then a big piece of heavy equipment about 5 feet beyond that. So you know things are underway, but the question is what's underway and what's the timeline and all that. And so 2 of our guys on the expansion committee, Shay Kirkman, who is the chair of that committee, and then Carl Lepiska, who is our boots on the ground, said this at the annual meeting. Every day that the guys are here working, Carl is here touching base with them and checking in and being their best little buddy to make sure things stay on track and things are done to the very highest of standards. So before we begin, let's thank Carl and Shay for all these guys are so great. I mean, rock stars. We are in very good hands. We have updated the capital campaign prayer, and it is now the expansion project prayer. It's a very clever deletion of 2 words and inserting of 2 words. But let's stand, all right, if you can, and let's say this prayer together if you can see it. And if you can't, then, just say amen when we get to the end. Heavenly Father,
we thank you for blessing our St. Lawrence family. We come to you with grateful hearts, asking for your guidance in all the details of this expansion project. Remind us to seek you first before every decision is made. Give us a spirit of unity and generous hearts. Direct us to build up your church, staying rooted in the truth. Expand these walls so that they may honor you and bring others to know you and love you. We ask these things in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.
all right, please be seated. There is room over there if y'all are looking for chairs and people that are standing up. Okay, I'm going to give this over to Carl Lepiska, and again, a huge thanks. Just get this one to advance to the next slide. Huge thanks to these guys.
Before we go through the nuts and bolts of the schedule, I wanted to say how blessed I am to be part of this project. We have a great team, and I'm specifically blessed to have 3 great bosses on this project. The architect we've been working with for almost 10 years, so they know us very well. They know what you all have decided you want in this project. And the contractor, we haven't known very long, but they've been, so far, every day they have shown us how good they're going to be on this project. And everything that we asked for that wasn't even specifically in the contract, so far, they've said yes. So above and beyond what they would have normally done. And my bosses, Shay, who is an amazing engineer, of course, and project manager on this project, and Father Crary, of course, who is our shepherd, and Father Crary, Father Jordan, who is our shepherd. It was all very wonderful working for, and of course the Lord, who has been molding this vessel over decades and decades, and here's another piece of it, and I believe beyond this one, when it's done, there will be more as well. All right, just a little reminder, most of you have seen this when you went to the meetings that were held last year. This is the basic design. Of course, this is the building we're in right here, and it's going to be made up of 2 primary pieces, the fellowship hall that we'll meet in to have coffee and visit together, and then most of the rest of it are the classrooms that will take care of our children, including the nursery and Sunday school for the children. The new building that'll be being built out there beyond the blue fence is the new parish hall. And there are 2 classrooms in there for the high school children. And then the rest of it will be used to conduct our meetings, to have our events, and a much larger kitchen as well to support the things we plan to do. So this is kind of a drone's eye view of what we're building. This is our entire property. You can see the colored buildings that are on there. That's right from the slide I just had up there previously. And just to give everybody an orientation, the church is here where behind us, and the office building across the creek. We're going to be referring to the north parking lot. That's going to be a big addition to what we have so far. It was previously the grass lot. We're going to have to deal with the Easter egg hunt somehow here in a couple weeks using the property we have. And then you see the 2 new bridges that are in our plan. The new vehicle bridge that'll come from the north parking lot, go across the creek and into the back lot that we're using now to support the loss of the space we had up above. And then this is the pedestrian bridge that will allow us to move from the office building from the back parking lot more easily over to the buildings here without going through the small bridge on the south side of the property. Okay, we're gonna.
That vehicle bridge won't be a low water bridge, it'll be a regular.
That's correct. Yeah, there
When
will.
it floods, you can still go over it.
Hopefully. Yeah, it's quite a structure that Shay has designed into that part of the property up there.
Actually, Carl, so is the low water bridge staying, or is it also being replaced?
No, it's going to stay. It's kind of under the shade here a little bit in terms of what we're allowed to do with that bridge. So we're going to try to maintain it as long as we can. We did, I don't know a couple years ago, we put a lot of work into reinforcing it. The inside, the underneath of the bridge was coming apart, so we put in new drains and new, I don't know, quite a number of trucks of cement to shore it up. So we're going to try to keep using it. Okay, here's an overall schedule. In this slide here, I'll get into a little more detail shortly, but we have 3 major projects. The top line is the new building that's being built here to the north, and in the middle, that middle line is the timeline for the new vehicle bridge as well as the pedestrian bridge. And we may change the end date on that bridge here, and I'll explain that in a minute. And then the bottom line is the schedule for the renovation of this building here, which is going to be done at the same time the building is being done to the north, the new building. Okay? So the overall schedule that we have with our contractor gets us a certificate of occupancy around the end of January of next year. We won't be in that day because it's going to take us, once we're awarded the certificate from the city, it'll take us a few days to put furnishings in there and make it habitable for us. So it'll be probably the beginning of February that we'll be able to start using that building. So one of the highlights of this schedule is that the existing parish hall will close from being used the week right after Easter. That's when we kind of go into a summer recess with all of our activities. The needs of the hall will be reduced. And It will come back in service the beginning of November of this year, which is a little later than we had planned. But talking to the contractor who's doing the work, they were very, very careful to explain to us what had to be done so that we would get the kind of building we needed. It will take about 3 months to do the structural work and get the building, the new cut-in put in, the new steel put up, the new roofing across the whole building, and then another 3 months to do all the interior work and finish out. Last week, the team had a pretty long meeting on dealing with the coordination of all the ministries that take place and the events that take place in this building. And Father Jordan had a list of about 64 ministries and events that we use this building for that we're going to have to find a way to work around during the time that this building is out of service. Some of them aren't as active, like I said, during the summer months. We aren't here as much, but all of these have to be addressed in some way, and every one of the ministry leaders that has the responsibility for these events and ministries is in contact with the team and working on how they're gonna make those happen while the building is shut down. The move-in date, again, like I said, on the new building, will take place a few days after that we get our certificate of occupancy from the city for that. And we are hopefully not having any weather delays or other delays that will prevent us from getting in, because as you can tell, right, following our move-in date are some of the year-end holidays that we're used to having this facility for. As part of the schedule, one of the other highlights of this work we're doing with the contractor, they're going to make the parking lot that is going to be poured here in the next couple of months available back to us long before the rest of the building is finished. That'll help us with the parking spaces that we have. It'll help with some of the distances that we're dealing with right now. There may be some interruptions because of what's going on with continuing work on the building. So they're going to provide it back to us. We may be interrupted from using it from time to time, depending on what's going on.
Is the parking lot going to be concrete?
Yes, yes. Where I have the north parking lot indicated out there, you can see all of the spaces that are marked in the pavement that will be similar to what we have. It will be concrete. I don't know if, it won't be asphalt, it will be concrete, but
About how many parking spaces?
145 spaces. Yeah, plus the ones that are underneath the little label there. Okay, a little more detailed look into the schedule. The top box here is the parish hall, the new parish hall. And you can see that what we're doing right now is moving a lot of dirt around. The space where the pad is going to be poured was dug out, as you may have read in Carrie's update. It was dug out and relayered about 12 times, and soil tests were done to make sure that it would support the weight of the new building. And then you can see there that the parking will be completed around the north parking lot will be completed around mid-June. So that's about when we'll get some of that space back in and out of the construction activities that are going on. The contractor will design a way to move the fence for us on Sundays, because they don't work on Sundays, so that it protects us from the building site, but then move it back to where it protects the whole site when they're using it during the week. So this is one of the items, for example, that I mentioned that the contractor is gonna do for us that'll make it easier for us during this time. And then this building that we're calling the atrium, the renovation, as I said, will finish. These schedules don't line up, so I know this is kind of hard to read here, but this is the beginning of November when this building gets finished. And then this is the schedule for the two bridges that are going to be laid in. As you can see, the current date for the completion of the bridge is in July of this year. However, we may move that date so that when the bridge is being finished, the back parking lot is, let me go back to the drawing here. You can see here's the bridge, and there's a long drive here that brings us up to the parking lot in the back. So when this is all being worked, a lot of this area is going to be unusable because of the construction activities that are going on. And so what we may do is hold them off and build a bridge, but we'll hold them off using any of this space until that parking lot is finished in June, okay? We may also preserve the timing for this space so we have some of our summer activities that we can still maintain using this back parking lot and the field back there. So that's about it. Any questions?
Real quick, will this be available to us, like as a printout or online, because it is kind of hard to read?
I'll put it on the website.
There's a part of the St. Lawrence website that has all the construction updates on it, and it'll be on there. So anytime you guys want to know what's going on, the whole effort here is we're having these forums to try to communicate. You see in the bulletin, we're putting as much minutia as we can, like literally, like this week they were playing with dirt, you know, like trying to give you everything we can give you that we know is happening. That's what the purpose of today is. And then there's this section on the website, and it's basically a construction log, is what it is already. So you can go back to week 1 and see the progress on there. So this is all going to be on the St. Lawrence website. And this is the summary version of these schedules, and we'll put it up there. But you know, the contractor has pages and pages of very detailed schedules. This is kind of a high-level timeline.
Yeah, the website that's part of our St. Lawrence web presence is turned out very nice. Carrie is keeping a log of all of the pictures. Right now, there's not much to look at. It's not really vertical yet. It's mostly a lot of dirt, but a lot of good pictures in there. And then the description of what has been taking place, even though it just looks like a lot of dirt.
Yeah, Carl Orke. I was curious as to how aggressive the schedule is. Do you feel, with regard to slippage and stuff like that, is there some pad built in there a little bit? Do you all feel very confident that, you know how construction projects go? Sure. At the beginning, here's projected end date. But how aggressive is this vis-a-vis potential for, slippage and moving out? How do you feel confident about that?
So, great question. We met with RJ Miller actually several times now to talk about where do we have float in the schedule, where do we not. really, from a weather standpoint, I think they've done a fair job modeling in a little bit of fluff. What's interesting, when you go back the last 5 years or so, we've had 2 seasons of spring rains that were way above normal. So if you hit one of those years, it's gonna blow every construction schedule. They did model in a little bit of fluff. We don't wanna present the most aggressive dates to anyone, because we do feel like that's just not realistic. There will be some delays that likely will be due to weather. Right now, Carl's done a great job asking questions like, hey, what's our critical path on steel? Do we need to go ahead and order that ahead of time? RJ Miller is out in front of a lot of the long lead items already. And so, you know, like Carl described, this is kind of a summarized version, and Father Jordan mentioned there's a much more detailed schedule that shows a lot of that. And in that schedule, you can see where things like the erection of steel for atrium versus new building, they've got time modeled in there, and each task might have a day or two of fluff. And so I think, while I don't think every task has a bunch of fluff on it, because some of that does overlap, I think they've modeled it in appropriately, but left a little bit of room for themselves that they can meet this schedule. If we don't have a terrible spring rain, you know, a full season of rain for weeks and weeks on end, they can meet the schedule. I don't think, so far we haven't heard anything about potential tariff delays. You know, some of the construction projects right now, they hit a timeout because of the tariff impact to steel. We have not heard that from RJ Miller, because they started doing some pre-ordering of steel when we first kicked this off. So unless we heard anything last couple of days. But so, great question. I think it's realistic. I feel like Carl spent a lot of time going through this with them and kind of seeing if there were places we could actually speed it up. But we finally got to where there were certain areas where like, we're not comfortable saying, yeah, we can shave off these 2 weeks and 3 weeks, because we do have to be realistic about the weather and some other factors. So.
And the liquidated damages, is there a grace period from this schedule before they kick in as far as an incentive to keep them on track?
Yeah, so our contract terms are pretty standard for the construction industry. We've got the effective date of the contract, the start of the project, and then they'll monitor any force majeure days, any out of our control days. Here's that count. We'll probably continue with each month's pay app. It's a good opportunity to review any lost days of work, and we'll track that with them. This contractor was able to, we did negotiate, as you know, some liquidated damages in there. And they've continued, like Carl said, they've gone above and beyond so far with some of the small things and some of the requests we've had. They've been great to work with. I do believe they'll continue to be great to work with. They have made it known, I know they've told you a dozen times, I've been there a bunch. It's financially in their best interest to finish sooner than even the schedule they've given us. Because they have a running clock of how much it costs to be on site. That piece of equipment right there, that's about a $280,000 piece of equipment. When it's sitting on a site, they're losing money versus making money. So they've gone through in a nice way and explained, here's why it's beneficial for us to hit that schedule, because we make more money by not spending it on equipment in general conditions. So that's, liquidated damages are in there, but they're also incentivized by their what's called general conditions to be off-site quicker rather than later. So liquidated damages, for those that aren't familiar, it's right now the way our contract is, you can think of it as a guaranteed maximum price. Some of y'all probably heard that term. The contractor is assuring they can do the entire project for this amount of money in this amount of days. So it's kind of a fairly simple framework for a contract. Protections for in our case, we're the client, we're the contractor. So protections for us are called liquidated damages, and what that means is if the contractor takes longer than advertised or agreed upon in the contract, there is a daily or monthly fee they pay us back. And usually they don't write us a check every day, it just ends up being at the end of it. We're holding retainage every month already. We'll hold 10% retainage. At the end, you true up with the contractor kind of the final payment and the final budget on that. And you true up liquidated damages with the schedule, with with all, it's basically a final tab or a final calculation. So liquidated damages are one of the church's protections to ensure the contractor gets done when they say they're going to get done, because besides additional general conditions that it costs them to stay on site, they start paying us a daily fee because they took longer than advertised. Does that make sense? Okay.
The other protection I think we have built into the contract is that we have progress payments that are being made to the contractor. However, they're not just a percentage of the total price. The progress payments are based on completion of various tasks. So if the contractor takes longer to complete something, they don't get paid for those things that they had planned on billing us for. So that's another way of looking at how they're incentivized to do what they said they were going to do for the service.
I have two questions. Where did we land on what the final plans were versus what we saw in the presentation? I know at some time there was a question around cost more and things were gonna be modified, like the back patio and the bridge. Where did we land on what we're actually getting? And then my second question is, are we still doing things that we can participate in while it's being built, like fundraising for bricks and things like that? I know we had talked about things like that.
I'll answer the first one and then I'll kick it back over here for your second question. Yeah, there are some things that we compromised a little bit in. The pictures that may have been presented in the renderings that you saw last year with a very elaborate back patio and gardens and areas down there in front of the creek, some of that has been scaled back a little bit. There still is going to be a patio back there. There's going to be 2 levels of grading and a retaining wall and a patio setting back there. I don't know of anything else major that we compromised on.
Oh, good, you got it. So yeah, Carl's right. So there is still a large patio, but we took off, there was a lower tier that we thought would be really cool, and it was cool, but I think the price tag on that one lower tier was around $55,000 if I remember right. It was pretty expensive. So we thought if we can get the larger upper tier, that'd be an awesome phase 2 or later on if we're able to do it. But that was also at the same time when we were really trying to work the bridges into the project. And so we didn't want to, not that we had to sacrifice one versus the other, but at the end of the day, a lot of this was, okay, what are the big chunk items that we might be able to remove and still get things like the bridge or things like, you know, we dropped the windows down from custom super high dollar windows to windows that nobody would know the difference. You know, I mean, those were easy decisions. The lower tier of the patio was kind of a tough one, but at the end of the day, we could still do it later. We're not losing the chance to do it, but money-wise, we felt like it was the right call now to do it, and it helped us get some of the bridges. Let me answer her second question before I go to that. So we are going to do some fundraising opportunities throughout. In fact, one of our last meetings with RJ Miller was about ordering. They have a brick provider that can do the custom bricks for donations, and I don't know what the plan is as far as the name or things like that to do on that, but we are planning programs like that. From the beginning, we looked at the outdoor chapel and the bricks within that outdoor chapel and columbarium. There's a great chance to do that in that spot. I'm fairly certain there's going to be other opportunities within the framework of the construction project to do that. I'd probably yield to Father Jordan on how many different ideas, but I do know the brick campaign will be a go because we're already working with the contractor on the custom brick order folks. So, does that answer?
So, two quick questions. First off, are we gonna upgrade the windows in this building when we renovate this building? And then secondly, just kind of curious how the neighbors are taking the project.
That's good.
So the neighbors have been absolutely silent. Here's an example of what we asked the contractor to do, before we hadn't even heard any comments or any complaints from them, but they agreed that we've explained the sensitivity with our neighbors on that side, and they put up the fence that wasn't even designed to be in there. They put up an 8-foot fence. They put this blue material is a little bit transparent, but the black material on that side is completely covered, so they can't see anything at all. And I asked the contractor every couple of days if they've heard anything, and they haven't, and I don't think we have, so it's been quiet.
Yeah, we also waited till we got pretty much every approval possible before breaking ground, so that, we're not aware if any of the neighbors contacted the city, because usually that's the first call. Hey, city, something's going on behind you. So far, the city staff has not made us aware of any complaints or any activity from them, so we're real blessed about that. We were fairly nervous about our impact to them, but Carl's right. RJ Miller stepped up, put that taller fence up there, and when you go out there, it makes a huge difference. I mean, you have to make some effort to see over the fence to see our project. So now, when you're here during the week, if you hear you can't avoid the beeping when this equipment is backing up. It's pretty loud and chirpy beeping. So I'm sure those that are there during the day are kind of annoyed by that, but it's a safety thing. We gotta have that. So but we still haven't had any. What was your other question?
This is curious, are we gonna upgrade the windows in this building when we renovate this building?
So yeah, I can't remember if these in here were. So remember the framework of this building. The biggest change is literally right behind where you're standing. That large clear story structure will be built in. So all of that will receive new glass, and there's some higher up windows on that clear story that will all be new glass. I've got to go back. I honestly don't remember if we had to replace. I think some of the windows that we could keep, we were keeping, but some of the walls we had to, like, for example, we have to put a door on that wall, and so we're going to have to adjust some of the windows where that door goes. So things like that will not. If it's into the window frame, we have to replace it. So if it's not, if we're able to salvage it, we did. But there's a final schedule of windows I'll have to check on this building to answer in detail. Okay. All right.
Other questions?
What about the office?
So the office had a little situation a couple weeks ago during the ice storm where the roof failed. We are trying to get that fixed, so we're in the process of working. Without going into the details of how our insurance works, there's sort of two types of insurance that we have, and one of them is with the diocese and one of them is not. And so we're trying to work with the diocese to try to do what we're calling minimal necessary repairs in the office to keep it open, to get us down the road a few years, but resisting the push to really truly put a ton of money into a structure that we had a funeral yesterday for a very long time member, Ken Little, and I was sitting at lunch with a few of our longest time members who were here when that was the church. And they were saying we should have condemned that back in 1986, that building. So they're like, man, that building has been bad for 40 years. So the goal is, that'll be a thing we all discern together where we go from here. But for now, we're just trying to do the minimum necessary repairs to keep the office going. And that office is going to be a big, important part of the renegotiation of all the ministries. So I want to underline something Carl said so that everybody is crystal clear on this point. And this is something really, really important for everybody to know. On April 28th, this building goes away, all right, for 6 months until November 6th, 3rd, November 3rd. So from April 28th to November 3rd, it's our priority to keep every ministry going that we have all of our studies and all of our stuff we do for kids and all of our fellowship groups, everything that we do in this building, we're going to have to do somewhere else from April 28th to November 3rd. So a lot of that is the 64 items that Carl was referencing. We met with the parish staff. The parish staff met with the vestry to try to start working through all of that. That's a lot of reorienting, 64 items on how do we do it between April 28th and November 3rd. It's a little easier from November 3rd to January 26th when we have the new building, because with this building will be back open. But that time, again, when you leave here today, I want everybody to be crystal clear on this point. On April 28th, this building is shutting down. So all the stuff we do in this building, we're trying to figure out a way to keep it going. It's our priority to keep everything going. We're not just like punting and saying, we'll take the 6-month sabbatical. We want to keep everything going the way we normally would. That's our priority, and we're working hard to do that, but some of it is going to be a little dicey, okay? It's not going to be the way that we do it now, because we won't have this building from April 28th to November 3rd. So we are going to do the very best we can with the remaining spaces that we have, but you start thinking about what are the remaining spaces to do all of our non-worship events. We got the music building, and we got the parish office.
You got your help.
Right? So we're trying to do 64 things in a much different configuration. So some of the things, like Carl's referencing, maybe we don't do the drive on the back. Well, part of that is like my request, like St. Lawrence Day is going to have to be completely outside this year. Right? There's not going to be, we won't have an inside element for St. Lawrence Day. Mother's Day is going to have to be completely outside. Now you said, well, we do that outside most years. Well, a lot of years we have a rain plan, which is inside.
What about a big
When we don't have a parish hall, what's our rain plan, right? So these are some of the things like that we're already discussing. There will be a ministry leaders meeting. We're starting to talk to the ministry leaders, but we want to have a ministry leaders meeting where everybody's in the room and everybody sees. I mean, this is the spreadsheet. Is a little bit, Mike Morasic would be in heaven, but the rest of us would be like, oh my gosh. So we're working ahead. We're trying to game plan ahead. April 28th, November 3rd, we don't have a building. So what we're going to need is a parish family that is very, very patient and forward-looking. All right? Because to get from point A to point B, there's going to be a few things along the way where you're like, this is not what I wanted it to be. All right? We're going to do our very, very best. Again, we've already had hours of planning on this point. All right, I think I've maybe beat the dead horse. Yes, Jay?
Do we also have to pack out all the equipment in this building?
Yeah, so we're starting to make a moving plan. So RJ Miller is kind enough, they're going to provide us these boxes, and we're going to be able to move out. So we started talking about this, the parish staff and I did on Thursday at our meeting. And we're going to have a walkthrough meeting here in the next week or so, 2 weeks maybe, where we start building the moving plan, the move out plan, because we've got Easter on April 20th, and then on April 28th, you guys read me, we're shutting down. So the boxes they're going to be 20-foot containers. We're going to load them up, and then they're going to put them on the back part of the property for us. They'll get them on a flatbed and move them back there. So they'll bring as many as we want. Again, this is one of these things where, RJN's been super helpful. Their guys will help us load them. So we're probably planning a parish work day to get ahead of that. But we've got to build a plan, and that'll be probably the next one of these forums we have in between services. We'll have the ministry moving plan built, and then the move out plan built, and we'll share that with everybody. Those things are in formation at the moment. Frank?
Yeah, well, I was just going to, I know there's multiple ministries, a lot of work to be involved, but what about Sunday school? I mean, that's not gonna fit, I don't believe, the music room. Is there any discussion or thought or
Yeah.
appropriate or not to have it, something in the chapel or in the church or it's either seem to me that or not have Sunday school or.
The answer is yes, so that's on our spreadsheet and exactly how we want to do it, and we've got what we're calling 3 phases of each phase. We got a pivot, because there's a phase before, kind of a summer phase, and then a early fall phase, and then a late fall phase, right? So the period between September and November looks different than the period between November and January, if that makes sense. So we have a 3-phase plan, and again, 64 ministries with 3 different configurations over a period of, 6 or 7 months. So the ball is not in the end zone there, but we've got the structure already made, and then we're trying to finalize that at the moment. But to answer your question, yes, everything keeps going, but it may look a little different. And so that's why I'm going to say we need a lot of patience, because everything will keep going, but it will be reconfigured because we don't have the space to do it as we do it today. Does that make sense? Okay, again, thank you to Carl and to Shay. We appreciate I think you can anticipate another forum, a month, 6 weeks from now, something like that, where we've got those plans in place and we'll share them with you, and then continue to try to keep, huge priority to keep everybody in the loop who wants to be kept in the loop. If you have questions or concerns, Carl or Shay they'll stay after, and you can ask them, and please by all means stay up to date. But otherwise, thank you very much for being here today.